A girl murdered her parents in their sleep with a pair of scissors. She then tried to burn the bodies in the garage. Story number 1. A girl murdered her parents in their sleep with a pair of scissors. She then tried to burn the bodies in the garage, but the only thing she had to burn them with was some weak perfume. As kids, we passed this story among ourselves, but I dismissed it as just a kid's story until my mother offhandedly pointed to the vacant lot where the house used to be. She said the daughter was molested and the father knew. Just before I graduated, one of our teachers was telling the town secrets, and he admitted he was the official photographer. The federal investigator they sent over didn't have a camera, and Mr. Sullivan had the best camera in the area. Unfortunately, his camera wouldn't work in the cold, so he and the sheriff had to come back again a few times to get the official pictures. I posted about this years ago and did some research. The girl was sent to the state mental hospital. She was found not guilty a few years later for temporary insanity. However, she was raped at the hospital and had a child. I did look her up, and she lives in a town just an hour away, but I did not bother her at all. She had a sister who was away in college at the time. Her daughter found my post and we did chat about it. Her mother insisted that no molestation happened and it was because of drugs. Story number 2. Every year, a student at the high school I went to has died. When I went, one had a brain tumor, there were a couple of car accidents, and a suicide. This year, 2 16-year-olds robbed a store in a nearby town, murdering the woman who worked there in the process. One was arrested, and the other was found dead from a gunshot wound to the head. This is still an ongoing investigation, so I don't know much other than that. Also, around this time of year in 2016, there were 4 homicides in the course of 2 or so months. Turns out some guy just decided he wanted to kill people. So yeah, it's kind of hard to pick one thing. Story number 3. A very famous family in our town owned a business that employed pretty much everybody. All died when their house sprung a gas leak. The authorities didn't give too much explanation, but it was horrific because the family was found in sad ways, like one kid was found in the tub and another was found in their room. This happened at night. The funeral was surreal because there were so many people. The coroner reported that there was evidence that one of the kids knew they were sick, but didn't know what from. Another horrible tragedy took place a little while ago when a few teens from California or something randomly targeted an elderly woman and stabbed her to death in her own home. Story number 4. In high school, a guy in one of my classes killed his mom, stole her car, crashed it into the back of a cement truck, and started running naked down one of the main streets of my town, covered in blood before being arrested. I didn't know him well, but the guy was a football player, smart, and seemed like a good guy. Nobody saw it coming. It turns out he had recently been diagnosed as psychotic. A judge ended up finding him not criminally responsible, and he was sent to a psychiatric facility for a while. Last I heard, he was released and attending community college. Story number 5. 2 things. I grew up in a small town in Oregon. When I was in high school, one Friday night, 2 brothers, classmates of mine, were on their way home from a movie with their girlfriends, also classmates of mine. They were hit by a drunk driver who ran a stop sign. The car burst into flames and all 4 died. Among the first responders was the boy's dad, who was a firefighter. They closed school for a couple of days and the town held a memorial service. The second one happened a few years later when a woman narrowly escaped an attack by a guy. That guy turned out to be serial killer Dayton Leroy Rogers. He had driven her up to the woods just outside of town where she got away, ran, and found some people who helped her. When they investigated, they found the remains of a few of his victims. The remains weren't too far from a place that was very popular for swimming and camping during the summer. The town was in shock. They even had classes in the schools over the following weeks to remind kids to stay away from strangers, not get into cars, etc. Story number 6. There were a few that got the headlines where I lived. 1997. On April Fool's Day, a snowstorm closed down the city. 1999. A fire broke out at abandoned warehouse building one December, killing 6 firefighters. The couple responsible were given probation for failing to report a fire and trespassing, which they started knocking over a candle. The owners, a Chinese couple, weren't charged as they weren't aware of any squatters. The civil complaint against them was settled out court. Since then, many firefighters feared the month of December as that has a high rate fatalities. 2009. A woman killed a pregnant woman and extracted the fetus. The daughter born out of the tragedy and currently lives with relatives, as far as I know. The homicidal kidnapper was given a life sentence. Bonus. This happened when my mom was a child. A tornado, an EF4, killed between 90 and 94 people in 1953, mostly that lived where I grew up in the 1990s. Story number 7. A mass shooting at a bar and grill called Borderline. It was college night. I was terrified. Fortunately, no one I personally knew had been there. My sister's friend who was a student at my school died along with 11 others. Our entire community was shattered. Hearing about shootings occurring all over the country is normal, but you never expect them to happen where you live. Along with this tragedy, wildfires were raging throughout the area. Thousands were being evacuated from their homes. It was a really bad time. Story number 8. There was a gas pipeline leak in the creek that runs through town. 2 kids were shooting fireworks near the creek and ignited it, killing them. Sad to say, the fortunate thing is, the creek runs through downtown, and if they had not ignited it when they did, the gas leak would have spread downtown, and the fatalities would have been higher. Story number 9. A family was massacred in their home. 2 guys came in, held them all at gunpoint. The assailants took the father to another room and shot him, took the grandma to another room and shot her, shot the mother in front of her 2 kids. Her body fell on top of them. Then they took the 2 kids out of the house and into their getaway car. They shot the older brother and started to strangle and stab the younger one. For some reason, they decided it was easier to just stop the car and throw the kid off a bridge. So they did just that. Thankfully, the kids survived and told everything to the police. Apparently, it was all over a rent dispute. The father of the family was the landlord where the 2 assholes lived. They couldn't pay rent, so they thought it was easier to just rob and murder everyone. The guy who held the family at gunpoint got 95 years. The one who actually committed the murders got 254 years. The kid that survived was just 13 years old. And this all happened on his older brother's birthday.